Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan! Hey! Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter!
Reserve your opinions, gentlemen. Hear me out. Across the river, 10 miles downstream, is the village of Trenton. It is held by 1,200 Hessians with Rahl in command. They have food, warm clothing, blankets, tents, cannons, muskets, ammunition, in short, everything we need. In 4 days, it will be Christmas. There will be a great deal of feasting and a great deal of drinking by the Hessians that day and night. I propose that on the eve of December 25th, we cross the river, march on Trenton, and attack the Hessians before dawn. And if God is with us, we'll take the whole lot of them.
Hey, Billy Yank! That's a mighty nice song.
Pleased you find it so agreeable.
I'd like it even more if I had some coffee to wash you down. You want some baccy?
Sure, Johnny.
Merry Christmas, Robert.
Merry Christmas, Thomas.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Uncut. I got on the brand video. I'm not used to that. How's everybody doing tonight? I finally put the intro in the brand category. We got a lovely video clips brand category over here on StreamYards. I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to become semi-pro with doing live streams. I'm never going to get to professional. Let's just be honest right there. How's everybody doing tonight? Maji Chan's in the chat. Thank you for joining in tonight. And if you're watching over on Rumble, I am trying to keep the chat open as best I can. And by best I can, I mean, I got my smartphone. I'm trying to keep it on down here. So if you want to watch via Rumble, I do have the chat pulled up down there as well. We're live on YouTube and Rumble. I try to dual stream every week, usually starting the streams around 8 o'clock. And it is the 39th edition of Uncut History. That means next week will be the 40th edition. Although, if you're counting the numbers to see, hey, are we to the 1 year anniversary yet? Don't bother. We started Uncut History very differently than how it became. It changed a lot within the span of 1 year. We went from it being I'll do it once every few weeks. I'll do a live stream about a certain subject. And then I think it was around April, was it? I think it was around April. I decided I'm going to do this every week. And unfortunately, I was not able to actually hit the every week marker, but I try as best I can. And we were in the chat earlier. Machi Chan was asking, where was the clip with the Silent Night music? So that actually was not a movie. That was from a commercial from a European candy company, Sainsbury, I believe is their name. The only reason I know what Sainsbury is because they made a 4-minute Christmas commercial, I want to say in 2014 or 2015, for the Christmas truce of the First World War. It is a fantastic 4-minute short film if you've not had the chance to see it. The historian in me fully approves. They did consult with historical experts. It wasn't like they just threw it together to sell a candy bar. They used historical authenticity to sell a candy bar. And in that regard, I approve of it. So definitely go check it out. I'm going to use that funny reel next week as well. For that'll be the Uncut History closest to Christmas. And you are suggesting I should include, I heard the Bales on Christmas Day. I probably should include that somewhere in the funnies. We'll see. There's the original poem, which has been turned into various songs. And then they just actually, was it a year or two ago, they actually made a movie for it. I don't think Angel Studios did it, but I think it was a Christian Film Works that actually done it. I remember in the Civil War reenacting community I'm involved with, the word was going out for any potential volunteers that wanted to be in the film. Nobody that I know directly sat in for the film, as far as I'm aware. I'll have to ask about that at the Christmas party, though. But they did make a movie a year or two ago about the origins of the poem, and the poem does originate from the American Civil War. So, yeah, probably should find a way to put it in. Well, tonight's preservation shout outs. So if you've never come here before for a preservation shout out, what that means is we're going to go through a couple historical sites that I've selected throughout the week, be it that I have been wanting to talk about it all week, or the algorithm showed me an advert for it. I went, oh, that's cool. I should talk about that. That's how sometimes things end up on the preservation shout out. So we are going to have a kind of delay because before we go into the shout out, why is there cold air? Who opened the door? There's like a pocket of cold air right here. What'd you do, Fred? What'd you do? My cat Fred's over here like, I didn't do anything. What'd you do, Lily? I don't know. I'm just feeling things. Probably because the heater cut off and now it's getting cold in my room. There is a story that came to my attention last week, and I didn't share it on account of it being the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. I didn't want to really get into things besides the anniversary of that event, but I'm going to get into it this week. So, on Friday, so the news hit just the day after. On December 8th, word broke out that somebody was charged with attempting to set fire to Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthplace home. And this particular article comes from Penn Live, Patriot News, and I'm just going to read from the Associated Press. Atlanta police have arrested a woman who's accused of trying to burn down the birth home of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in Atlanta, Georgia. Officers arrested the 26-year-old woman around 5:45 p.m. Thursday after responding to a report of vandalism in process at the two-story home in the historic Auburn Avenue Historic District, according to a police statement. don't like the use of historic twice in that sentence. My linguistic side bothers me on that. Police say a preliminary investigation shows the woman had poured gasoline on the property before people at the site stopped her. Her name was not immediately released. She's charged with second-degree attempted arson and interfering with government property. The historic site is now a museum owned by the National Park Service. Tonight, an unfortunate incident occurred at the birth home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as an individual attempted to set fire to this property, the King Center said in a statement posted to Twix. Fortunately, the attempt was unsuccessful thanks to the brave intervention of Good Samaritans and the quick response of law enforcement. The statement from the nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to preserving the legacy of King and his wife, Coretta Scott King, also said, our prayers are with the individual who allegedly committed this criminal act. Some more news has come out since this original publication. It said that some of the individuals that stopped her were actually two New York Police Department officers that happened to be visiting Atlanta and they were the ones that saw her trying to pour gasoline right on the porch. I swear I saw an article before I turned on the computer tonight that this lady is retired Navy. I don't know how true that statement is, and my brain can be messing with me. Yeah, this happened. Don't do this stuff, folks. I don't know what else to say. I think the lesson speaks for itself. Don't destroy historical property. That's a no-no. You're not going to win support from anybody for whatever statement you're trying to make with trying to burn historic property. No, don't do that. Anybody have anything else to comment about the situation? I think it speaks for itself. Hail Wrangler, welcome to tonight's stream. All right. Well, without any further ado, we're now going to officially jump into the preservation shout-outs. But I had to talk about that first. We were talking about it a couple days after last week's stream. And yeah, it doesn't sit well with me that somebody would do that. Our first historic site is going to be Elmira Prison, or as it also has been known as Camp Robertson. And it's been called a few other things, sometimes simply the encampment in Elmira, New York. This was originally a training ground, but later would be a prison camp during the American Civil War. It was originally constructed in the spring of 1861 to be one of the free centers where volunteers that are signed up to go to fight the Confederacy at the request of President Lincoln, where they would rendezvous, be sworn into the military, get some basic training before they went off to get absolutely mauled at the first battle of Manassas. So it was used as a recruiting center, training ground in the year of 1861. But by 1862, they really didn't need it. Only had a garrison of 50 soldiers. So the original military encampment in Elmira, New York was closed in spring of 1862. However, it would be reactivated in the summer of 1863 when, well, guess what? The war did not last 3 months as promised to the first 75,000 volunteers. We were now in the third year of the American Civil War, and conscription began in the United States of America. The conscription had mixed results, to say the least. It was not popular with most northern states. There was a big riot in New York City as a response to it. And they reactivated the military base in Elmira to be a point where conscripted soldiers would be sworn into the Army and trained, just like 2 years before the volunteers were. Now, because of that, in 1864, there still was this enlistment encampment in Elmira, and there was now a major need to find a location for Confederate prisoners, because not only in 1863 did the United States begin conscripting soldiers, in 1863 they also announced the Emancipation Proclamation. And as a response to this, you're going to see African-American individuals enlist in the United States Army to fight against the Confederacy. And the Confederacy, when they would capture African-American soldiers, they didn't treat them too well. In some cases, there were massacres. In other cases, they were thrown back into enslavement. And in protest to this, the United States basically stopped doing a prisoner exchange with the Confederate States. So the United States, as well as the Confederate States, ended up with this large, massive sum of prisoners of war and what to do with them. It's pretty well known how select Confederate prison camps treated their Union prisoners of war. If you look up the history of Andersonville Prison, and well, things weren't too different in the Union. There weren't too many camps set up for prisoners. One of the few in 1863 was in Maryland, was Point Lookout. And Point Lookout was grossly overpopulated by 1864. So the decision was made to move some of the prisoners of war at the Union, in the Union-held Point Lookout. I'm probably getting my words confused. To move Confederates that were prisoner of war by the Union from Point Lookout, Maryland, to New York, to move them to Elmira, the training ground. Now, the problem of doing that was, while Elmira had recently been vacated by New York regiments who had gone to join the Army of the Potomac in the attack on Petersburg, Virginia, it was not equipped for, it was only really equipped for 1,000 to 3,000 prisoners. It was not set to have what ultimately, it would come to host 12,000 prisoners of war this encampment would. So it was grossly ill-equipped for the size that it was about to host. Nevertheless, a variety of barracks were thrown together. As I mentioned, 12,000 Confederates would ultimately be held prisoner here in Elmira, New York, to which the Confederate prisoners later called as Hellmira as a result. Now, it wasn't necessarily that the Union forces were intentionally trying to kill these guys off, but it was so much the location. As I mentioned, it was not built for the size to host 12,000 prisoners of war, let alone 5,000. It also is located right next to waterways. And in the winter of 1864 going into 1865, those waterways flooded and went right into the encampment, causing a perfect breeding ground for a variety of ailments. And ultimately, nearly 3,000 of the inmates at Elmira Prison would die before the prison was closed in the late spring of 1865 with the war's conclusion. Elmira Prison is very notorious. Some call it the Union's answer to Andersonville. And while I have heard that there are some claims that the Union guards treated the Confederate prisoners horribly as a result of what was happening in Andersonville, I've heard other historians say that wasn't the case. The situation came from the small quarters and its close proximity to the waterways that made it such a horrible location. In either case, not a good time if you were kept in Elmira. And I also found a little interesting detail. I want to make sure I'm not muted. Okay. I sometimes get paranoid. I'm like, I'm not muted, right? Apparently, when they started bringing Confederate prisoners to Elmira, New York, the local townspeople built towers to look into the prison, and they charged fees for curiosity lookers to be able to go up to the tower to look in to see the Confederates, to see who the brave men of New York were fighting all these years. Like, they were charging like 10, 15 cents. Like, that's twisted. The business of gawking at Elmira Prison didn't last long, though, because the prisoners would do obscene gestures toward the crowds that were looking at them, and that kind of stopped people from wanting to look into the camp. Yeah, funny story. Prisoner of war camps are not an attraction. Now, when the prison was closed in 1865, a lot of the prisoners were interred at the Woodlawn National Cemetery. And actually, what I found interesting doing my research today, the main caretaker of putting the Confederates to rest at Woodlawn was an escaped slave from Virginia. His name, if I have it written actually down here, it was John W. Jones, an escaped slave from Virginia who ended up finding occupation as being, I guess you want to say, the main caretaker of the dead of the Elmira prison. He was very successful in identifying the dead. Of those that he buried, only 7 were unidentified. And if you go to the Woodlawn National Cemetery, there actually is a monument to the Confederate dead in the cemetery, which is very interesting to me. You don't often hear about national cemeteries in the United States government having Confederate monuments. This is one of those few exceptions due to it being a prisoner of war camp. Random other notes, Woodlawn National Cemetery is where Mark Twain is buried. So he's buried in the same cemetery as over 1,000 Confederate prisoners of war. Now, when they closed this camp up, they tore it down, and there was no trace of it, as far as I'm aware, left. So there is a non-for-profit entity, the Elmira Prison Camp, that are working to reconstruct elements of the camp for historical education. They were, I don't think they were founded in the. I wonder if it says here. I truly don't know what year the non-for-profit was founded, but I know they broke ground in 2015 for the reconstruction. So this is a relatively new project that has been going on in Elmira, New York, and we're actually going to go over a little bit about them. Our mission statement. The Friends of the Elmira Civil War Prison Camp is striving to protect and preserve the history of the Civil War in Elmira, Chemung County, New York, and surrounding areas, and to educate the public about this history. The project vision, that the Friends will be the primary resource for the history, education, and preservation of the Civil War experience in Elmira and its surrounding areas. This will include working cooperatively with other local groups, as well as building relations with relevant organizations nationally. The current project is the reconstruction of an original camp building, which will be located on the grounds of the original Barracks Number 3, that served as both a Union training and later prisoner of war camp. The purpose of the building's role is unknown at this time. Based on its structure, it was probably a general purpose or utility building. With reconstruction underway as it currently stands, fundraising is still necessary to ensure completion of our project. And they finished this in 2016. They also have a nice little gift shop. So if you're looking for a last-minute Christmas present for any potential history buff in your family, you can buy them an Elmira prison ball cap. Ooh, what's this? Now, I'm getting distracted by shiny things. Lucette with nail from a... Oh, okay. It's an original nail from the prison that's been put into glass. Okay. For $270. I don't have that budget, but if somebody does, please go buy that to support the non-for-profit here. There's a short video here about Confederate escapees. Many tried to escape Elmira. Only 10 were successful. Let's see if we could get some photographs of what they've been up to preserve this history. So there you can see some of the buildings that they've reconstructed. Thief. Building number uno. Okay, looks like inside the reconstructed Barracks Number 3, they have displays of Union uniforms for the infantry as well as the cavalry with the yellow stripe there. Oh, look at that coal stove in the middle. It also looks like they had displays of Confederate uniforms of the prisoners that were occupying the grounds. Very interesting. So yeah, this non-for-profit is working right now to reconstruct elements of Elmira Prison, known by the Confederates as Elmira, and is considered by some historians as the Union's answer to Andersonville Prison. Going on the bucket list. I say going on the bucket list. I really should make a digital bucket list so you guys would have access to it and you could poke fun at me and hold it to me like, hey, look, when are you going to this place? You could hold me to it so I'll actually be motivated to go, or by motivated, I mean raise the funds to go. So links in the description below for the Elmira Prison Camp Museum. Be sure to go check that out. Hey, look who joined in. Trippy Soul has joined us all the way from the West Coast to the East Side here. He's probably just coming off work while I'm getting ready to crash. Oh, time zones. Hell of a drug. Well, it's fun. It's fun. I should find... I'm honestly thinking that'd be a fun way, find a unique way to make a bucket list into an entertaining thing for the audience here of Redoubt Productions. But as I say on my others channel, more on that later. So we're moving over to Fort Snelling. Yes, Fort Snelling. So we've jumped from New York over to Minnesota. In fact, we're going to the confluence of the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers to discuss Fort Snelling. I stumbled across Fort Snelling while doing research for the most recent edition of Retracing History, which was about the 1st Minnesota Infantry Regiment that fought at Gettysburg and suffered the highest casualty rate of any regiment at that battle. 82% casualty rate. So if you want to learn more about the 1st Minnesota and their heroics, go check out the most recent episode of Retracing History. But first, we're going to talk about Fort Snelling, and I'll explain why that's important to the 1st Minnesota in a few moments. So Fort Snelling, it's built, as I mentioned, at the confluence of two key junctures. Now, being in Minnesota, we are talking about lands that were once home to the Dakota people, the indigenous Dakota people. And to the Dakota people, they referred to this as, if I hopefully pronounce this right, the Bedote. They called a confluence a Bedote. And the Bedote in Dakota culture has great historical significance, that the meeting of waters and the meeting of land, almost kind of where humans meet the great spirits. So, yeah, a little interesting that the United States built a fort on a location that meant high spiritual importance to the Dakota people surrounding the fortification. The fort was built in 1819 and construction went on until 1825. So the United States had a buffer point between its expanding territories and the indigenous people living in the area. So this served as a trading post, also served as a court, as a location to host courts, served as a location for the United States to move west to map out and chart Western lands that were not yet well known to the government. And we'll talk later, was used for some not so good deeds. It served about 40 years of operation as being the gateway between the United States of America and the Western frontier. It was closed in 1858 as the frontier had moved much further west. But everything changed with the onset of the American Civil War. And Fort Snelling was the rendezvous point for volunteers from Minnesota. So very similar to how Elmira was a rendezvous point for volunteers in New York, so too was Fort Snelling for volunteers in Minnesota. In total, Minnesota contributed 11 infantry regiments as well as an assortment of cavalry and artillery units during the American Civil War, including the 1st Minnesota. See, I told you to come back into the story. So that's how I stumbled across this site, because this is where the 1st Minnesota were actually mustered into service and got their basic training. Now, the photograph you're seeing is of the surviving structure of Fort Snelling, the stone structure right at the confluence, but there was a much larger facility built around it at the time of the American Civil War to facilitate the recruitment and the training of volunteers. Now, while the Minnesota regiments went off to fight in the east and western theaters of the war, Minnesota actually became a battleground, but not because the Confederates invaded, but because there was a war between the United States and the Dakota people. Tensions mounted over what was to become of Minnesota. Minnesota became a state on the eve of the American Civil War, which greatly upset the Dakota people, as this was their ancestral lands, and they felt they'd been swindled out of land deals. And this is going to lead in 1862, which becomes known as the Dakota War. Interestingly enough, the United States government sent out General John Pope to handle the situation occurring in Minnesota at this time. What a guy to send out west. If you don't know, John Pope was the general of the Union Army of Virginia at the Battle of Second Manassas, and was kind of put in as a pseudo replacement to General McClellan after he had failed to capture Richmond in 1862. It didn't go too well for Pope. He got his butt whooped by the Confederate Army in North Virginia and very quickly fell out of favor with the Lincoln administration. So he was sent out west after his failure to handle what was occurring in Minnesota. So Dakota people launched attacks on American settlements in the state of Minnesota. Minnesotans are going to launch attacks on Dakota villages. It's the same old story when you get to American Indian Wars. Both sides attack at each other's villages indiscriminately, causing untold amounts of bloodshed. The war essentially subsided by 1863 when the United States, how do I want to word this? Essentially, the United States told the Dakota people, all of our treaties are now null and void. You are subservient to us. And this leads to probably the darkest chapter of Fort Snelling's history. If I can pull up the timeline here. Oh, over here by timeline. Well, Lily, I'm trying to tell a very dark part of American history. I know you want to be very lovey-dovey right now, but I have to get very serious. And if I try to hold you while I'm talking, you're probably going to bite me in the neck. So I'm not going to do that. So let's get to the point. Here we are. So as a result of the Dakota War and the United States basically removing any legal jurisdiction that the Dakota people had, they ended up rounding up almost 2,000 Dakota people, men, women, and children, and forcing them to stay at Fort Snelling, essentially as like a processing point where they'd be forced into Fort Snelling, be forced to swear their allegiance to the United States of America, or otherwise face the consequences. And in many ways, this appears as a concentration camp. Now, there was no direct extermination being conducted. There was no attempted mass murderings occurring at Fort Snelling, but nevertheless, people died as a result of the poor conditions that the United States government offered the Dakota people in the winter of 1862 and 63. Anywhere from 100 to 300 Dakota died while they were interred at Fort Snelling. And Fort Snelling would also be the scene of a number of hearings, number of hearings relating to individuals of the Dakota tribes. And a lot of these hearings weren't done with the most sincere of terms. A key member of the Dakota tribes would be accused of a crime. There would be a kangaroo court, essentially, and they would be found guilty and face a certain punishment. The two most noteworthy was Sekpenden and Wakan Ozanen, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. They were assisting Dakota people escaping from Minnesota up into Canada, where hopefully they can keep some semblance of their culture going. Well, they were caught by the United States and were accused of being war leaders during the Dakota War and accused of attacking Minnesota villages. They were ultimately found guilty and they were executed. And they were probably the two most noteworthy executions conducted as a result of the Dakota Wars. And they were held at Fort Snelling. And Fort Snelling was not done just there. So moving on, after the United States had conquered these lands of the Dakota people and turned into the state of Minnesota, they're going to actually, again, they had a timeline here, but it's not, it was showing up far more pretty earlier, but now it's a little. But, the overview. Okay, because they got a really nice overview here that kind of breaks it down. This was. I'm getting distracted, guys, because my cat keeps rubbing. Do you want to be on the camera? We'll put you on camera. Look, there's the audience. Yeah. Now you're stuck on my coat. Now you're stuck on my coat. There we are. There. Do you want? No. No. You're gonna look at the audience. Now, if you want to bother me, you got to look at the audience. Oh, what are we doing here? Now you're stuck on my shirt. Are you happy now? All right. I can feel your tail wagging. You're very happy. You're enjoying that you're disrupting this. Okay, I'm going to put you down now. There we are. Okay. I think I made her a little bit happy that she got some attention. Freaking cats. What's going on over here? We're talking about the shape of water. Yeah, no, this is a very interesting site. Hey, look, King Bob joined us. King Bob, welcome to tonight's stream. I'm just reading through the chat. We got a conversation occurring between Manji and Bob. That's totally not scary. When you two plot, I totally don't get nervous. No, don't let the cat get me. I got 3 of them. If one takes me down, I don't know what the other 2 are going to do with my body. Kitty! We're talking about the shape of water. Huh. Anyways, so yeah, they got a really nice website here, and I'm, of course, drop the link shortly. They got a lot of information. Like this, the place is built in the 1820s, serves the Civil War, serves during the Dakota War. Then it's going to serve to assist as the Buffalo soldiers are going to be sent out moving west, taking control of the frontier. So it's a rendezvous point for the Buffalo soldiers. And then it's used during the Second World War. We got a fort here that was used from 1820 through the Second World War. And this was actually the site where over 3,000 men and women joined the armed service for the Second World War as a reception center for the state of Minnesota. And it says here they had 800 recruits a day go through the door to Fort Snelling. And it was also used as a location to muster in a variety of forces, including the 99th Infantry Battalion, which later became the 474th Infantry Regiment. Military police were trained here. What's this? After 1944, the fort was the location of the Military Intelligence Service Language School, where the Nishi Japanese Americans learned Japanese, Korean, and Chinese languages and culture in preparation for overseas service as interpreters, interrogators, and intelligence workers. Wow. All of this happening at one site. And I think I would never have known about this site if I not researched the first Minnesota. And speaking of the first Minnesota, the battle flags in Minnesota. Gotta look at these. Oh, the page not working. Oh, I want to look at the battle flags. They're so cool. And Minnesota loves their battle flags, and they will never give up their battle flags, even captured ones. Because Minnesota, they are very passionate about their military history. And the location is also the home of the Fort Snelling National Cemetery. The cemetery was created in 1870 to serve as a burial place for soldiers who died stationed at the place. It was later used to inter Grand Army of the Republic, which is Union veterans of the Civil War, Pan Am veterans, VFW members, disabled Americans, Jewish war veterans, and members of the American Legion were all interred here. So, yeah, Fort Snelling in Minnesota. Got a lot going on. This is a very deep rabbit hole of history. And King Bob was interested. You should go and check out that link right below. We were talking about movies at the bar. Oh, okay. The bar, and that came up. I got it. I got it eventually. It takes a little while for me, but I get things eventually. So, that is Fort Snelling. Yeah. I am hoping someday. I keep saying that for everything. I hope someday get out there. But, Minnesota is west. There's a certain crazy drinker that lives farther west. If I ever have to go out there for a certain barbecue or a certain convention, may have to make Fort Snelling a pit stop if I go out to that barbecue. I don't know what I'm talking about, to be honest. What barbecue? I don't know. So that is Fort Snelling. And we got time for one more preservation shout out. And we're going to Springfield Armory, which is, of course, in Massachusetts. You probably recognize this name because this was the federal government's armory from the 1780s all the way through the 1960s. So we're almost looking at almost 200 years of history of firearm manufacturing. Fred, please do not destroy my curtains. You don't need to destroy the curtains. Don't destroy the lights either, because you'll end up as a fried kitty. You're end up like the kitty in National Lampoon's Silver Christmas Vacation. What are you doing? Now you're going to get trapped back there. I think I'm going to actually have to go back there and rescue Fred before he tears down the Serapis flag, and we don't want to lose the Serapis flag. So, folks, I am going to disappear for one moment. I will be right back. Sorry. Not only did I have to rescue Fred, oh, don't look cute at me now. Then I come back to the computer and the live stream froze on my end. This is a curse stream. It's official. Curse stream. It's happened. I mean, if you want to. Now, what type of Springfield do you have? Are we talking like Springfield, Massachusetts, like U.S. issued Springfield? Or are we talking Springfield Armory in Illinois that makes private firearms, which is still going on today? There are two different Springfield armories. I'm talking about the good. I'm talking about the. I was gonna say good one. We're talking about the federal government. We're talking about the military one right now. Yeah, freaking cats. Ooh, you will tour and stream with me. I am all about that. It's been a cursed week. Yes and no for me. I mean, the good news was I had a lot of time this week to get I'm just gonna say it right now. My major videos for the rest of this month, and I guess technically the rest of 2023, I got them all done. They're all set and ready to go. Does that mean I'm going to stop making videos for the rest of the year? No, but I got the big marquee ones set out and scheduled. So I try to keep as busy as I can, but on the other end, yeah, it might be a curse week. Enjoy a prison poster sent via Ko-fi. Ooh, a prison poster. I'll have to. Do I want to look at a prison poster? Is it going to be like it's the inside of a prison, and it's going to like look at the horrors. This Merry Christmas. Look at the horrors. Now I'm assuming what you're referring to is meant to be done in kind, and I appreciate it, Manji. Okay, what are we talking about? Oh, right. Springfield. Yeah, we are. Springfield Armory. That's part of the National Park Service. And actually, it was only in 2017 that it got transferred fully to the Park Service. The federal government, I believe, had stewardship of the property from even after they closed production in 1968. They still had stewardship of the grounds until 2017. Now the Park Service fully owns it. So let's read a little bit. Plan to visit. Basic information. Learn about history. A little bit. Let's just read. For nearly 2 centuries, the U.S. Armed Forces and American industry looked to Springfield Armory for innovative engineering and superior firearms. Springfield Armory National Historic Site commemorates the critical role of the nation's first armory by preserving and interpreting the world's largest historic U.S. military small arms collection, along with historic archives, buildings, and landscapes. Ooh, things to do. Take a self-guided tour through our museum. See our historic firearm collections as well as the machinery that made it. Museum is open 9:30 to 4 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday. Take a self-guided tour on the grounds and see the exteriors of the historic structures. Oh, you can't go inside. Bummer. I want to go inside. Then again, I think all the historical stuff has already been gutted from the building, so... Join park historian programs on the weekends. Join the Junior Ranger program and see our schedule of events for other things we're doing. I heard a bump in the night. Had to double check. Let's go over to history products. Yeah, so one of the cool things they got here. Well, they don't have you don't have a photograph of the Oregon muskets. Hold on one moment, guys. They have this nice, lovely write-up about the Oregon muskets, but they don't have a photograph. Federal government. Useless. The Oregon of muskets is how the Springfield Armory, and actually most armories in the world, would safely house their stock of firearms. So when you think of stand-up arms or going into an armory to go grab a firearm, we're talking about how they actually preserved it. And all these images are ugly. I want the big one. Why can't I have the big, nice big one? Well, I'm gonna go over to John Banks' Civil War blog. John Banks, by the way, has for several years been traveling the country to publish a book called Civil War Road Trip of a Lifetime. And it's basically him and just reciting his tales of encounters at museums and historic sites. I've been wanting to get my hands on it and do my own thoughts and opinions of the book. So someday it'll be coming out. So we're going to use John Banks photographs so I could show you this awesome display that they have at the Armory Museum. All right, here we are. Look at this. This is how the United States government would house firearms at the Springfield Armory for many years. Look at all of them. There's like 800 firearms in this one, what they call an organ. Oh, so okay, 645, 1861 muskets. Okay, not 800, 645. Still, that's hundreds of firearms. And of course, somebody who loves the Second Amendment, this makes me very proud to look at. So, all 1861 Springfield muskets, which were one of the primary firearms issued to the Union Army during the American Civil War. Look at it in all of its beauty, all of its beauty. Yes, so that's like the featured artifact they have. I think there were many. I think there was like dozens of these historically at Springfield. I think they just have one on display today. Just one. They give you an idea of the might of the American war machine in the 19th century. So yeah, that's talking about the display, which I have no photographs for because apparently they don't want you to look at it. Unless you go, oh, maybe we go to Photos and Multimedia. Oh yeah, look, Redoubt, there's photographs. Oh wow. So yeah, there's the Oregon muskets. The Blanchard Lathe. The Blanchard Lathe was created in 1820 and allowed for a streamlined manufacture. Is there a way to zoom in? Essentially, how it works is it's two wheels that are suspended in a cradle. One has a metal blank, and the saws go over the metal blank, and it essentially feels the vibrations of the metal blank, causing the second circular saw to spin over a wooden stock and to create the stock of a barrel. So this allowed the United States government to mass produce firearms. The lathe right here. There's a little write-up. Some nice photographs of the exterior, of the museum collection, of the Commandant's house. Back to gallery, previous. What else can we learn about? Originally, this was used to manufacture and supply Massachusetts militiamen and Massachusetts regiments during the Revolution. So it wasn't formally part of the United States government during the Revolution, but it did still supply. It wasn't until 1780 that the site was deemed important enough to be made into the United States' first armory and arsenal, to which certain Southern congressmen and politicians protested. Why does the Northern states get all of the manufacturing? We should have two armories and arsenals, which is how you get the second one in Harper's Ferry, then Virginia, which again, I got a whole video retracing history about exploring the ruins of the second National Armory and Arsenal. Yeah, that one didn't last long. Springfield, far better suited, far safer to build a armory and arsenal, which is why the United States manufactured firearms from 1786 all the way through 1968 at this facility on the same ground. So they manufactured firearms for the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, American Civil War, the Spanish-American War, First World War, Second World War, and Vietnam War, all manufactured in the same facility, which is why this just makes it such a fascinating site. Very rarely do we hear about people in America using facilities for more than like a dozen years. We're so used to building a structure and then tearing it down. So it's cool to see a location that was used for almost 200 years of history. Let's see. Let's learn about, there's stuff here about Thomas Blanchard, who I mentioned earlier, created the revolutionary lathe to mass produce firearms. Yep. Blanchard created his first replicating machine, a lathe for uniformal cutting the exterior surface of musket barrels. Using a cam to control the cutter, the final 3 inches of the breech were automatically formed, partly flat-sided as in-hand made barrels. By 1818, Springfield Armory had its machine in operation. Legend has it that during one of Blanchard's visits to Springfield, a musket stock maker who carved the wood and gun stock was heard to express that a machine could not be invented to replicate his skill at shaping wood. In a short time, Blanchard realized that he could produce just such a machine. In 1819, he patented his wood-turning lathe for cutting irregular forms. The so-called Blanchard lathe, actually, it's a shaper since the cutter is a rotating wheel, works much like a modern-day cutting machine with a stock blank in place of the key blank. An ironmaster form in the shape of a musket stock slowly rotates, allowing a guide wheel to roll over it and to direct and turn the cutting wheel as it makes identical movements on the rotating wooden stock. So there it is in all of its glory, that revolutionary piece of technology that allowed the United States to mass-produce firearms for many, many years. What else we got? I'm just kind of going down the rabbit hole now. I hope you're enjoying it. Places. So these are all the locations on the historic site. You got the Commanding officers' quarters, junior officers' quarters, of course, the main arsenal. Building 19, where wood was seasoned and stored for the armory to make stocks. Very interesting. The water shops, because, of course, the Springfield Armory for many years was powered by water, and it had a whole chains of gears and pulleys underneath its flooring, the main arsenal, to power everything. And Building 104, here millions of M1 Garands were produced during the Second World War, with over 1,000 being produced a day. There's also the Quabbin Reservoir, which was constructed by the Commonwealth in the 1930s to increase fresh water supply to the city of Boston. See what it says when we go to the main arsenal. Of course, this is the featured attraction. Established in 1777 as a federal arsenal, as an arsenal of firearms that supplied the Continental Army. After the Revolution, Springfield was officially established as the Federal Armory, where arms were stored and produced. 1794, yep, talk about the sister site at Harper's Ferry, which we all know how that went. As Springfield Armory underwent the transition from an arsenal to armory, it expanded as it no longer just stored firearms, but manufactured them. And that's something I want to mention quickly. The term arsenal and armory is often used interchangeably by the general public. It means very different things. An arsenal is strictly where you house weapons. An armory is where you manufacture weapons. Yes, this term gets confused a lot, even by some historians. And myself, I sometimes accidentally interchange them. So there is a distinct difference between arsenal and armory. Springfield went from being an arsenal to becoming a full-fledged armory. Main Arsenal building was constructed in 1847 to 1850 under James W. Ripley, replacing the three previous buildings used to firearm storage. Built on site of the previous commanding officer's house, excavation began in 1847, and by 1849, it was noted that the building was ready for reception of gun racks and for the clock to be placed in its tower. The main arsenal stores up to 300,000 firearms. Initially, the firearms were stored in double height racks, each of which could hold 1,100 firearms. But after the Civil War, firearms were stored in crates for easy storage and quicker distribution. But come on, the Oregon was cool. It was a cool way to store. Sometimes you got to have style when you store things. Got to have style. So yes, the Springfield Armory. And I am going to drop a link in the description below. There is so much to read here. There's the link. Blanchard. Honestly, I heard of the Blanchard lathe, but it really wasn't until this week I got to know a bit more about who Mr. Blanchard was and all that he had done. It's crazy how we'll recognize names so often and just not realize how significant they are. We just take them for granted. Oh, come on. You're the king. You got some style, right? There's so during what type of musket are you talking about? Because at least what I actually have, and I should say it's not actually in my possession. I have a friend who generously has given me one of their firearms for long-term loan for Civil War interpretation. What I got over in the corner there is a 58 Enfield, which technically is more for Confederate portrayals, but both sides used the Enfield during the Civil War. Both sides importing them in from Europe. I want to get an 1842 Springfield. I wouldn't mind having any Springfield, but I want an 1842 Springfield, not a repro. I want an original, and you actually could get them. Usually the price is anywhere. A functioning one, you're looking at anywhere from like 1,100 to 5,500. What I find so fascinating about the 42, it seems to me that the volunteer preferred the smooth-bore musket over the rifled musket, which might sound crazy because, well, ain't the rifle musket more accurate? Yes. But with rifling comes the fact that you have to ram that down the notches. The notches are going to resist as you ram the shot down, which isn't a problem if you're hunting, but is a problem when you're trying to get off a rate of fire 3 rounds per minute. And keep in mind, most of the soldiers that went into the American Civil War were volunteers and never been in the military before. So trying to get the ramming in and out down was difficult with some of the rifled muskets. So in some cases, these soldiers would favor the 1842 Springfield because it was smooth-bore and they could just slug it down, fire. And if you get within 100 yards with a 42 Springfield, those are murderous weapons. Buck and ball particular, now that's more going to the 1816 Springfield, but fucking ball and so many smoothborns could destroy enemy regiments far superior than a rifle musket would. Granted, when you have guys lined up with any type of weapon within 100 yards, you're going to cause a lot of destruction. You're going to cause a lot of destruction. All right, it is a Springfield. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, you got a Garand, so yep, yeah, you got an M1 Garand, so fair enough. Want to get that someday as well. I feel like there's so many what I want. I want the 42 Springfield. I want I'd love to get a 03 Springfield, 1903 Springfield, and get the M1 Garand. I feel the M1 Garand is a rite of passage. If anybody wants to become a historic firearm collector, I'm wavering next year because I really want to find an original 42 Springfield for my living history. But I also want to get a kit to build a repro of the Brown Bess of the King short pattern that was used by the British Army during the Revolution. Because it's the Brown Bess. I mean, I think it'd be fun to have. But I can't have both. I mean, if I buy a historic firearm next year, it's going to be one. And I should get the 42 Springfield. But that's all next year. Then I could do firing demonstrations more regularly. I don't touch the Enfield unless I absolutely have to. Not that it doesn't function, just I try to keep it prick and prop as best I can. But yeah. So that's the end of the preservation shout out, but stick around, guys. We got a few more things to discuss tonight. I think we're gonna hit that 1 hour mark again. So get hydrated. Like I'm gonna get hydrated. Get hydrated. And then we're going to run over because we got something to shout out. Oh, wait, before we shout out, I completely forgot I was going to tell the story. Okay, so who wants story time with readout, even though that's been the past hour? And I think I'm just going to pull, I don't really have a lot of good images for this story, so I was at dinner yesterday, and we were sitting around, and my friends were having cigars. I do not partake in cigars, but I was having a very lovely lager that was made by a local distillery, I must mention. And we're sitting around chatting about historical tales, and we were talking about the Silver Bridge collapse, which occurred in West Virginia in 1967, and tomorrow will be the anniversary of that. Deadliest bridge collapse in the United States of America. And as I mentioned that, somebody said, wasn't that the bridge that the Soviets were supposed to build? And of course I go, what? How did the Soviets get in this story of the worst bridge collapse in America? No. The guy goes, and he's like, no, I got it up. It was on the West Virginia and Kentucky border. It was on the other side of the state. There was a bridge that the Soviets were going to build because it was so shoddy that nobody else did it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So that began me doing some research today. There's a little community along the Tug River, and the Tug River is the boundary between West Virginia and Kentucky. We're talking way southern West Virginia and south and eastern Kentucky. There's a little village called Vulcan, West Virginia. It was set up around the 20th century to be a patch community, a coal town for coal miners. Though it seems that they must have mined the Kentucky side of the river. I don't think they may mine the West Virginia. They were coal miners. I think they actually mined the Kentucky side because the only way these West Virginian citizens could travel was they had to go across the Tug River on a swinging bridge into Kentucky and then take the Kentucky roads back into West Virginia because the state never provided them a proper bridge. The coal companies did not provide their people a proper bridge to get out of their town, which probably a reason for it. The coal companies don't like their workers going far. They want to keep them there 24/7 to mine as much coal as possible, to deliver as much product as possible. And this went on for many years. A lot of people were upset, but stuck with it. They took their script from the company. There was reports that if they wanted to go across to Kentucky, get out of Vulcan to go across, they would have to go across the Norfolk and Western rail line. The problem was that Norfolk and Western had a routine of parking coal hoppers right in front of the swinging bridge. So there's stories of kids having to crawl under the coal hoppers to go to work. As I say, no, not go to work, to go to school. But we're talking about coal companies in West Virginia and Kentucky. I wouldn't put it past them. They were employing young kids. So Vulcan was a small patch town. Coal mines operated up through the Second World War. Coal industry goes bust in that area. And Vulcan is essentially trapped. These citizens of West Virginia can't get out of their own town unless taking the swinging bridge into Kentucky. And well, since the coal company's no longer around, nobody's maintaining that swinging bridge. And by the 1970s, that bridge was starting to fall into the Tug River. Things were getting pretty bad. Now, there was a service road that ran on the West Virginia side of the Tug from Vulcan and ran up to the nearest community north of Vulcan. But the Norfolk and Western put gates over the service road and told anybody who was found on it that was not a railroad employee, they would be fined for trespassing, as they claimed it was unsafe to travel the service road. So the one road on the West Virginia side they couldn't use. So the community, seeing that their swinging bridge was falling apart and that they're about to become trapped in their decaying little village, because there's no income anymore, they started appealing to county officials. Hey, can we repair our swinging bridge? Or even better yet, can you provide us a road bridge to get out? To which the county said, oh, we don't have the funds for that. So the townspeople began petitioning the state of West Virginia. Funny story. They also said, oh, we don't have the funds for that. After all, according to our topo maps, you have a road that goes from Vulcan to the nearest village north. The townspeople said, that's not a state road. That's a private road for the railroad. We can't use that. Which the state said, you're just reading the maps wrong. You're just reading the maps wrong. And this went on and on till we get to 1976. Let me double check the dates right on that. Pre-death checking. So 1976, 1977, around that time, the self-appointed mayor of Vulcan was unincorporated, didn't have an official mayor, but the leader of the local population, he appealed to the United States government, to which the United States went, sorry, we can't help you. So you appeal to your county, you appeal to your states, you appeal to your federal government, and nobody's willing to cough up a few $1,000s to build a small bridge to give you access to the rest of the world. So what are the people of Vulcan to do? They appeal to the Soviet Union for foreign aid. And the crazy part is, the Soviet Union did took the letter from Vulcan, read it, and they must have had some interest in it, because they actually sent a Soviet reporter to the United States to investigate. Now, I'm unsure if that reporter was able to get for customs or not, but the Soviet Union did send a reporter, so at the very least, they were interested in getting involved in this project. Could you imagine if there was a bridge on the West Virginia-Kentucky border in the heart of the Rust Belt of the United States of America that was built by the Soviet Union? And what would they have done? Would they have sent Soviet workers? Would they have sent the Red Army to go work on to build this bridge? And then we were joking, as at our cigar night, we were joking about what would they have done? Would they have emblazoned sickle and hammers on the cement pillars of this bridge? This would have been the high watermark of the Soviet Union, building a bridge for a West Virginia community that had basically been ignored by the United States government. Well, when word got out of this happening, the press went wild with it. And I'm not going to say it was national #1 news, but it was prominent in headlines of several newspapers across the country, including the Spokane Times reported on this. And as King Bob says, and thus Red Dawn was born. Yeah, this is the origin story of Red Dawn. This is why they were all paratrooping in Red Dawn. They weren't there to attack the Americans. No, this was in Red Dawn. That was the work crew coming to work on the bridge in Vulcan. Well, news ran wild within the United States, and within an hour, the people of Vulcan got a phone call and said, oh, we got the funding. The state of West Virginia, we're going to fund this. Yep, no problem. You're going to get a bridge. Bada bing, bada boom. And the Soviet Union never came to the United States to build a bridge because within an hour of the national government having word that the American citizens were so desperate to have some of their infrastructure restored that they would appeal to the enemy of the United States government. Within an hour of hearing that, that changed everybody's tune very quickly. And Vulcan, West Virginia did get their bridge, albeit a one-lane concrete bridge, which if you go onto Google Maps today, you will find is heavily graffitied. The railroad still goes for Vulcan. It's now Norfolk and Southern, though I think they only have 2 tracks, and I don't think they're blocking the bridge anymore. I think they're on the other end of Vulcan. And the service road's still there. And what I find interesting, if you go on Google Maps, you will see it labeled as Vulcan Road. It's Google Maps swears you there's a road in 2023 to run from Vulcan, West Virginia, along the Tongue River to the nearest community north on the West Virginia side of the river, even though it is still only a service road of that railroad and cannot be used by the general public. So that is the story of the Vulcan Bridge and how the Soviet Union almost build a bridge in the United States of America. It was just something I found completely interesting. And like Fuman Blue saying, well, the Chinese build here, why not? That's interesting to mention that because here we are in the late 1970s, heresy that the Soviet Union are going to accept the appeal for foreign aid from West Virginians. How the United States government, how dare they do that? West Virginia, how dare they do it? Today, China State Construction Engineering Corps, headquartered in Jersey City. Boy, how the times have changed. Or as Trippy says, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So yeah, that's my diatribe on the Vulcan Bridge. I don't know. I wasn't able to really make a video on it, but I thought it'd be a cool little segment to discuss tonight. A fascinating story. And does make you think about, boy, how the times change, but also really how they have not. All right. Now, I do have one more final thing I wanted to show tonight, and it is the part of Uncut History where we are going to shill a new piece to our shared culture. Because as you know, I've said in the past that at least here in the United States, maybe other parts of the world as well, I don't feel that our culture is very healthy at the moment. It seems that at least for the mainstream portion of culture, what you're going to see on the big billboards and the digital screens in Times Square, things aren't doing so well. People aren't really liking the stories we're being given, being the stories of our shared past or stories we make up in our heads and create into works of fiction. So it's important to highlight true storytellers that are putting their hard-earned work, sweat, and tears into producing stories to heal our shared culture. And that brings us to... Wait till I hit the button. Brings us to Ben Franklin as Silence Dogood, time traveler agent. Yes, so you're probably, for those that are joining us in from A Drink with Crazies Gilded, you're probably wondering, did I discover this on one of his Comic Shop Wednesdays? I actually knew about this before. And again, this was one of those situations I've been wanting to shield this for a few weeks, but I didn't want to do it last week with it being the December 7th stream for the sake of to honor the servicemen. I didn't want to get into much other details. But then he happened to shout it out on the Comic Shop Wednesday. So now we're here, and it all kind of tied full circle. So let's check it out. I got to get on the main screen. A young Ben Franklin is tapped in a VR program controlled by AI in an alternate dystopian future, ready to ship. And by ready to ship, I mean that this is not a campaign. This is a storefront. It is a you buy in, you're getting the product. So don't worry about if this is actually going to meet demand. No, you're going to get the product. So no reason not to support this if you want to get your copy. But first, we're going to play the trailer, but I got to get on my end. I got to get the wires hooked up. Hold on. I got to get the wires hooked up. Yep, totally getting wire. There's totally wires I'm messing with here. I'm totally not going to StreamYards and having to share by tab. Here we are. Oh, don't cut the red wire. That don't end well. Here we are. Sounds too good. We're back. I'm gonna play trailer for you now. Just the hype. A world enslaved by AI. It's probably all just, I just lost all your hearing, but that's fine. It's awesome music. Ben Franklin's running out of time. Ben Franklin is Silence Do-Good, time travel agent. Issue 1, now shipping. Yeah, no, this is awesome. I want to get this as soon as I have the funding to get it. Oh, behold it. Oh, where'd it go? Where did Silence Do-Good go? Oh, we're back. Okay. What if America's most prolific founding father found himself trapped inside a VR program controlled by AI? From award-winning illustrator and writer Sean Salter and writer Charles Knopf, Silence Do-Good, a young Benjamin Franklin is ripped from his own timeline and trapped inside the VR program, which is run by the artificial intelligence designed by one of America's largest tech companies, which happens to be in the middle of a corporate war between two other global tech companies, all vying for wealth, power, and control. So what you're saying is Elon Musk has developed technology to grab historical figures from their period in time to be in the present so they can duke it out in virtual reality. That totally sounds like something Elon Musk would most likely do. In a world dominated by robots, people look for escape within virtual worlds. A society is guided by AI. Ben is now faced with a decision that will not only change his life, but will challenge his core beliefs and could ignite America's first revolution. Oh, so there are going to be tie-ins. This isn't just a big what if. There are going to be tie-ins to how this is going to lead to historical events. Can I make this canon? Can I just start teaching this? It's like, yes. And then Ben Franklin, after his time of being an apprentice, got sucked into the AI, which compelled him to draw a lovely illustration of a snake divided into the 13 colonies to unite them in the Albany Conference of 1754. Though this did not work so well in uniting the colonies against France, the symbol would soon be used to unite the colonies against Britain 2 decades later. Awesome cover. I'm unsure how I feel about Franklin's design. I mean, it's first of all, it's weird just seeing Franklin as a young person. He kind of looks a little bit like David Tennant as the Doctor. I'm not gonna deny. Not that that's a bad thing, although considering current Doctor Who. Oh, look, George is down there too. Gunslinger looks like from the Wild West. So are they pulling people from other time periods? I wonder, because that's like a gunslinger over there. That's 19th century. Are they pulling people from other time periods into this AI? The team, Salty, aka Sean Salter, is a creator, writer, and illustrator on the comic. Award-winning illustrator and writer, worked in the entertainment field for 20 years, and is making his debut in comics with this one. Alan Rhodes is a co-creator and writer on this series. Alan has been a writer on the animated series The Garden. Charles Knopf is writer on Silence Do-Gooder, veteran in the comic world, and has written for such titles as Iron Man Civil War. Patrick Salter is a consultant for the comic, an American historian, and historical consultant. Patrick Salter is a historical consultant for Silence Do-Good and writer of the short lessons of American history. Hey, and look who's also there. Mike Barron is a consultant and contributor to Silence Do-Good. I want to say Silas. It's Silence Do-Good. Comic book legend, Mike Barron has written for such books as The Punisher, Nexus, and a slew of other big hits. Yes, dear reader, far more dangerous. The series Silence Do-Good is a story about 1776 traveling to the future to kick 1984's tail. It's a decidedly pro-liberty and pro-American sci-fi action thriller. While its focus on telling a great and compelling story, the mocking tone toward modern wokeness will surely guarantee it being rejected by the mainstream. So we have opted to publish it ourselves. 30 plus pages of pulse-pounding, action-packed story, full-color premium print, and a short American history lesson with a sketchbook. Ooh, I like the shading on this one. I like the blues. Hey, that image there, don't. Oh yeah, I don't think you can see the one on the right. That image there on the right with the red banner, that totally isn't symbolic of anything. Restate was November 28th. Issues 2 and 3 shall be released in 2024. And if you just want to get issue 1, it is $13 plus shipping. And if you want to get a signed copy, it's $25. Want to get a retail box, that's 10 copies. It's only $100 for retail. No, I want to do it. I have a few places I can put this, few museums, but I'm not gonna. But, well, not that I won't, just when the funds come, There's a lot of things I'm going to do when I get the funds. Like I'm going to get my 1842 Springfield, and I'm going to travel to Fort Snelling. Oh, when the funds come. So yeah, go check out Silence Do Good. Awesome trailer, awesome concept. Very curious where this goes. They already have the first issue out, so you don't have to worry about if you're investing into something that won't get released. It's there. You buy, you get the book. There you are. What's that symbol? Oh, nothing. You don't even know. Oh, King Bob had a dip out. Hey, thank you for tuning in, King. Thank you for tuning in for another week. Another week. I like the hard edges of the people. Yeah. No, I like the art style. I definitely like it. I just said, he really looks like David Tennant. Not how I expected young Ben to look like, but fair enough. Yeah, pretty sweet animation. Can't go wrong with Vivaldi. No, you cannot. I can't read computer internet lingo. Oh, he left to go get food. Okay. I get it now. Thank you, Fu Man Blue. Thank you for clarifying. So, not that button. That's going to do it for this week for Uncut History. Now, we will be going live next week. Of course, it'll be the Uncut History before the holidays, and I'm going to want to make it a little bit special. So, what I would like to encourage everybody who's watching tonight, or if you're watching the replay, there's going to be a comment section. If not now, once this goes to a replay, there should be a comment section. If there's something you want me to react to, be it shouting out a certain historical site like we did tonight, if there is a certain fiction series you want me to look into, it could be comic, it could be a movie, a show, anything. If there is a certain video on YouTube that there's a certain internet video going around relating to history, or you think I would have an interest in, if you want to see my reaction to that, if there's something you want me to react to, I want to make next week's stream about that. I don't want to regularly do reaction. Well, I guess I'm kind of reacting. So every week I'm reacting to reading the history, but I don't want you to do your standard sitting and reacting to a video the whole stream. I don't want to do that regularly, but it doesn't mean I don't ever want to have fun. So if there's something you want me to react to, be it a historical topic, a historical location, a piece of media that you think I would have investment in. Oh, wow, that's quick. And that's very easy for me, Skunks Workshop. If there's something you want me to give my thoughts on that you think I'd be interested in, leave it in the regular comment section once this turns off, there should be a regular comment section. If you do put it in the chat now, I'll try to keep notes. I'll try to keep my notes down. And if you have my contact information through, if you know who I am through the Gilded, you can also DM it to me through the Gilded. So I want to do something fun for the holiday. That'll be next week's stream. I'll be reacting to stuff you want me to react to. Boy, I made that too vague, and probably I'm going to pay the price for it, but will be entertaining for you guys. I don't know if it'll be entertaining for me, but that is going to do it tonight. So, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a really fun stream. After last week where I was just stumbling for my lines, I feel a little proud of myself. I feel I recovered partially, but probably shouldn't be too proud. New video will be out this Saturday. It's going to be a new series. it'll be regimental histories on the French and Indian War. So, first regiment up, the regiment from the colony of Virginia, George Washington's command. That premieres this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll be back here Thursday for a special Christmas edition of Uncut History, where I will react to things you want me to react to. If you have not done so already, hit the like button. And I just realized this. I was going to, okay, I checked the Rumble stream. I hold my word. I checked the Rumble chat, even though it's the first time I've done that in an hour. Hit the like button down below, be it if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, because when you do that, you let the algorithm know that you like seeing this content, and it'll help spread the word of these historical projects. And if you want to be the first notified when I go live, be sure to subscribe to Readout Productions. And if you have not done so already, hey, subscribe also on Rumble. If you've done it one way, you can double dip. You can go subscribe on the other outlet as well. That'll help increase our army. Right now, we're at the size of, we're a little bit bigger than a regiment. We're a little bit bigger of a regiment currently. So if we want to throw a Hail Mary at our evil overlords, like the 1st Minnesota, we can do it, but we would suffer 82% casualties. So let's maybe try to increase this number so our casualties aren't so high. So if you want to support the channel, be sure to subscribe to here on YouTube or over on Rumble. And if you want to go the extra mile in support of me, you'll see the link below for my Ko-fi page. That's the best way you can support me, by purchasing me a cup of coffee in the morning. I was weird today. I had coffee in the middle of the afternoon. I think I'm becoming addicted. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. We're going to play the music. It's playing. Thank you for tuning in, Stunts Workshop. Been a great day. Been a great evening. Same with you, Maji and Gilded. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody who tuned in tonight.